So we were talking about the crisis as point of changing involution to evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my last question was, there was two questions. One was, what do you think, all people comes to the crisis, or some of them stay in evolution path?
Some people stay in the involuted path, in a way stuck in a crisis, but not knowing how to get out of it and searching in ways of relieving it, maybe through drugs, through alcohol, through various addictive behaviors, or maybe they lead a fairly contented life, but they don't have the curiosity to pursue a deeper self-inquiry.
So the evolution began not from a question, but from the answer.
The evolution may start with a question, an inquiry, a moment of crisis, some turning point, or something that starts to arise as a deep questioning of who am I, what is this suffering? And I was talking that some people start that search and they'll begin it more as a psychological endeavor. And so they'll become friends with their emotions, their thoughts. They come to a certain integration as a psychological human being, but they still feel something's unresolved. And so that initiates the next phase of the search. I think it's interesting to note that some people in that evolutionary movement at the start begin to integrate psychologically. Others, they go all the way through, I would say, the evolutionary awakening, and as they come back down involuting, they have to now go through that stage of psychological integration that they didn't pass through when they were evolving. So it's either going to come in the evolutionary aspect or it's going to come in the involutionary aspect, because we do see people who go all the way through the evolution, have an awakening to their essential nature, and then they come back into daily life. If they haven't done that psychological integration, they have a very deep understanding of the unity issue, the sense of no separation and unity consciousness, but we see their lives can be full of havoc.
I am not fully understand. So in my mind, it was before that this is kind of linear path. So first part is involution and second part is evolution. But the way you are trying to put it now, it's kind of involution, evolution, and then back.
Correct. A back return into daily life.
And what is the finishing point of whole spiritual path? Where is it?
The whole finishing point is back where we began, but as a fully integrated psychological human being who has awakened to the understanding that there is no separation. The self is a thought or an idea, but not a reality. And there is the felt realization of no separation within the play of separation and duality. So there's that full-on integration of both the non-duality and the duality aspect. I'm living here now as a fully functioning human being amidst the daily life, the ins and outs of family and relationship or job, but fully awake so that when I'm looking at you or I'm looking at a tree, I see the form and I know that there's difference, and yet for me there is no difference. There is an underlying felt sense of no difference.
Okay, but what for, if I understand right, you go through involution first, then evolution, and then involution again.
Yeah, that involution is when we're born, we stabilize as a human being.
Right.
We have a psychological sense of ourself as a self that's separate. We're either a male or a female or some combination. We have a identity as a job or whatever. That is a kind of a consolidated, dense involution. Then the evolutionary starts, and we in a way grow out of those identities. We shed them.
Right, this is I understand.
And we come to that deep realization. Then from that realization,
Right.
if we only stay in that realization,
Right.
we don't see boundary, we don't see border.
Why? We already had an experience of seeing boundaries.
But now you've let go of them.
Right, but anyway, I let go of my attachment to the boundaries, but I can keep my ability to see them.
True, but there's an idealistic and a practical reality here. The awakening to our non-dual unicity consciousness can happen in a flash, but all the residues that may be left over from a lifetime of living as a separate individual with habits and conditioning, that takes time to shed. So there's a kind of a new involutionary coming down, moving back down through those layers of conditioning and not getting caught in them again in a whole new way. It's one thing to shed our clothes. It's another thing to come back in and put them back on and realize none of these clothes are ourself. So we operate in a way as if we're a separate self, individual, and yet we're not. But what I see is it takes time on the way back in and coming back in that second involution where we're learning whole new skills, whole new way of being.
For example?
We may need to relearn our emotions, our thoughts, our relationships. How do you have a relationship when you know there's no separation, but your partner still perceives you as a separate individual? It can cause a crisis in the relationship. How is it?
Why?
Okay. At a practical level, after my awakening, I was sitting with my wife, and she said, "It feels like there's nobody here." And I said, "There isn't. Isn't that fantastic?" And she said, "No." She said, "I want somebody here." And she said, "It feels like I could just be anybody." And I said, "Yeah, you are. You are everyone and anybody." And she said, "I don't want to be anybody. I want to be special." For me, the realization of that she could have been anybody and that there wasn't anybody here was just incredibly liberating. For her, it felt like there was nobody to have a relationship with me. For about 3 years, I navigated that territory, integrating it. And then one day we were sitting together on the same couch, and she turned to me and she said, "You know, it feels like you're back." And I said, "Actually, I'm the same person I was 3 years ago, or 2 years, or 1 year ago, but something has happened where it feels like my sense of humanness has returned. A sense of you're still nobody, but you're a special nobody. And I don't know why, but I love you and I love being in relationship with you." It continues sometimes to confound, because in relationship, like she'll say to me, "I love you." For me, I don't have as much of a sense of "I love you" as there's love here and the same love is over there. So it feels like love is meeting love and there's just love. That doesn't go over very well for someone who doesn't live that understanding, because they're looking for more of a personal relationship. And you're living, or I'm living, in a very impersonal world. So it took me a long time to integrate both that impersonal back into a more personal life, where now I can say to my wife, I love you, you're special. But inside, really what I'm feeling is loving love. And yeah, you could be anyone, but there's a mystery here because there's a special feeling of wanting to be with you. And I also saw that in the evolutionary stage, I came to a certain understanding and friendliness with my emotions and my thoughts, enough so that I could let them go. In coming back into that second involution, I had to re-meet all those emotions, all those thoughts, and learn in a way to relate to them in a whole new way. Because in the evolutionary, we're shedding them. In the involutionary, we're bringing them back on. We're working with them, we're feeling them. Instead of trying to let go of them, we're actually bringing them back in, and we become familiar with them, I would say, in an entirely new way. And in the evolutionary stage, there's a moment where we realize this, what is beyond, I would say, love, even compassion, kindness. It's just a purity of pure awareness. As we come back in, those qualities begin to re-embody again, compassion, kindness, loving kindness, but I would say in a whole new way. In the evolutionary stage, it's like an encountering a sense of love or kindness or compassion, and then in a way going beyond it. In coming back and taking it back on, I realize I'm not lovingly kind, I'm loving kindness itself. So it's a whole new way of understanding.
Sorry to bother you
That's all right.
again. Is Tatiana in here?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, I got a hold of Sydney.